They say betrayal cuts deepest when it's quiet, and mine came without a fight, wrapped in silence and Wi-Fi. My name is Ethan Coltrane, 46 years old, a structural engineer based in Austin, Texas. I've always believed in blueprints, the kind with rules, order, integrity. That belief shattered on a Tuesday afternoon, right after I signed off on a bridge inspection report. A ping on my phone caught my eye. Alert, unauthorized access attempt, trust account. My heart skipped. That account was private, airtight, known only to one person besides me, my late Uncle Marcus's attorney. I rushed home, heart pounding like steel drums. When I opened my laptop, it wasn't just numbers that betrayed me, it was her face. My wife of 11 years, Lana, had sent an email. No greeting, no explanation, just one line. "I've moved your inheritance into my personal account. It's better this way." Attached was a grainy photo of Lana on a sunlit balcony with a man whose arm draped casually around her waist. 2 wine glasses, a golden sky melting behind them. The timestamp read 11:22 p.m. Bali time. She was supposed to be on a solo wellness retreat, to reconnect with her center, she had said. Turns out her center had a beard, a linen shirt, and very familiar surroundings. I recognized the villa. We designed it together, planned a joint venture. Her wellness brand, my structural vision. I had sketched the pergola by hand. That money, $613,000, wasn't just money. It was legacy. My Uncle Marcus raised me when I lost my parents at 15. He built roads, funded schools, helped me get my degree. When he died, he left everything to me with one handwritten note: build something no one can take away. Now Lana had tried to do just that. The thing is, I wasn't blindsided. Not completely. Over the past 6 months, Lana's trips had grown longer, her phone more guarded. She'd asked oddly specific questions about the trust, where it was held, how it could be accessed. I'd played dumb, told her I needed to check with my accountant. Truth? The trust was locked down tighter than a vault. And her attempt? It triggered every digital tripwire I'd installed. That night, I didn't rage, I didn't cry. I poured myself a glass of water, looked out over the backyard we landscaped together, and made a quiet decision. I wasn't going to chase her. I was going to outbuild her. The betrayal wasn't just emotional. It was architectural. It wasn't a fracture. It was a demolition from the inside out. Lana and I had built our reputation on trust. 7 years ago, we co-founded Vita Frame Wellness, a startup blending architectural serenity with holistic retreats. She was the radiant front, the speaker, the seller, the one who appeared on glossy magazine pages in flowy dresses. I was the scaffolding, permits, blueprints, zoning laws, efficiency models, the quiet force behind her light. Back then, I thought we were building a life together, one forged by our skills and sealed by mutual purpose. But now I saw it for what it was, a collaboration, on paper. And somewhere along the line, my wife had rewritten the blueprints without telling me. The irony was cruel. My late Uncle Marcus had left me that $613,000 inheritance to build something no one could take away. He'd watched Lana charm my family at reunions, watched her squeeze my hand when I talked about opening sanctuaries for veterans and overworked first responders. "She's a good one," he once whispered to me. I believed it too. After his funeral, Lana showed a sudden burst of interest in honoring his wishes, but her vision skewed fast. "Let's scale this. Thailand, Sedona, Tulum. Real estate moves faster than wellness." I didn't bite. Something about her tone didn't sit right. At first, I dismissed the red flags. Her solo healing retreats turned from 4 days to 2-week marathons, receipts from high-end restaurants in Ubud, late-night phone calls on the balcony where she'd speak in hushed tones, her voice rising only when she laughed. And it wasn't a laugh she used with me anymore. Still, I played dumb. I made her tea when she got home. I complimented her Instagram posts, even when they felt like curated lies. But I also began to move silently, just like she had. I contacted Uncle Marcus's lawyer, Rita Landon, and confirmed what I suspected. The inheritance was in a firewalled, irrevocable trust, separate from any marital assets. I hadn't told Lana that. It turned out she'd spent the past 3 months trying to penetrate that firewall. What she didn't know was that I had installed digital tracking alerts on all attempts to access the trust. When her email arrived, the one in which she declared she had moved the money, I didn't panic. I smiled. She had unknowingly handed me a confession and a crime. I forwarded the email to Rita with the subject line, "Documentation, initiate file." Her response came 30 minutes later. "Ethan, this is attempted financial fraud. We will move immediately to secure and escalate." I spent the next 2 days pulling logs, screenshots, and metadata. She had tried 3 times, once from a network in Ubud, once from Scottsdale, and once, most damningly, from our home Wi-Fi at 2:13 a.m. 2 weeks before her retreat. She'd been in bed beside me that night. But I wasn't angry, not in the way people expect. Rage implies loss of control. What I felt was precision, the kind I use when a beam is 1 millimeter off in a drawing that spans 4 floors. Lana hadn't just hurt me. She had attempted to steal the very thing my uncle gave me to protect who I was. That's what made it war. I contacted a forensic accountant, a divorce attorney named Tom Alden, and a private investigator all in the same morning. I didn't tell friends. I didn't make a scene. I took long showers and answered her occasional texts with "thinking of you too" and smiley emojis. Let her stay distracted. Let her feel invincible. Meanwhile, the investigator pulled public property records in Arizona and Bali. Guess what surfaced? A lease in both Lana's and a man named Jason Avner's names. The same Jason who appeared in the photo she had accidentally attached. The beard, the glass of wine, the balcony. Jason was not just a friend. He was her co-signer. On the apartment, on the life she had already begun building, without me. The investigator found more. Jason had previously worked in private banking, was fired 2 years ago, and now taught meditation and financial freedom workshops in Canggu. The plot wasn't just betrayal, it was partnership. They'd plotted this together, and I had every document to prove it. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I needed the court system to see exactly what kind of woman they were dealing with. By Friday, Tom had drafted the paperwork. Petition for divorce on grounds of financial misconduct and fraudulent intent. We filed Monday morning. Lana had no clue what was coming. The moment the papers were filed, I felt it, the shift. For the first time in months, maybe even years, I wasn't operating from defense. I was in control, and it was time to act like it. The first person I called was Mark Simmons, our joint accountant for VitaFrame. I'd worked with Mark for 8 years, long before Lana started treating our company like her personal sandbox. When I explained what had happened and sent him the trust access logs, he didn't even blink. "I'll pull everything," he said. "If there's a money trail, I'll find it." There was. Within 72 hours, Mark uncovered a hidden account opened under a shell company called InterVista Holdings, listed on a P.O. box in Sedona. The kicker? That business was co-owned by Lana and Jason Avner. the same bearded, a yoga mentor from the email photo. They'd been funneling money from our joint business account into this private entity over the past 5 months. Small amounts at first, masked as supplier payments and retreat deposits. Then it escalated. Tens of thousands siphoned off under project codes that never existed. Mark sent me the full audit. I forwarded it to Tom Alden, my attorney, with a single message. She didn't just lie. She used my legacy as scaffolding for her escape plan. You wanted to dissolve the home we built, but now you'll watch me build something stronger. Without you. Your access to VitaFrame is terminated. Your name is being removed from all partnerships. You chose reinvention. So did I. I didn't send it right away. I waited. Because the truth had a way of catching up on its own. That same week, Northern Lakes Credit Union, the obscure bank that hosted the InterVista account, responded to Mark's subpoena request. They confirmed that the account had received nearly $187,000 in unauthorized transfers over 4 months. The signature on the authorization forms was forged using a digital scan of my initials, the same image I had once used for our anniversary scrapbook, stupidly uploaded to our cloud account. It was poetic, really. Lana had taken pieces of me, my trust, my name, my resources, and twisted them to fund a new life with another man. But instead of destroying me, she handed me the very evidence I needed to reclaim everything. Tom drafted a new motion for the court. Petition for corporate sabotage, breach of fiduciary duty, and digital identity fraud. The penalty? Complete forfeiture of any claim to VitaFrame, restitution of stolen funds, and a permanent injunction preventing her from operating under any brand we had co-developed. But even with the legal power in my hands, I didn't want revenge. I wanted liberation. Lana had thought she was clever, creating a secret business, but in doing so, she'd exposed her true self and freed me from ever questioning her motives again. That Saturday, I walked through our flagship retreat in Asheville, the place we had built together, the one she hadn't touched in over a year. I stood under the pergola, where a cedar bench bore an inscription I had carved when the first building was complete. This space was built for healing, even from ourselves. I smiled. She'd taken everything she thought mattered, but what she forgot, what she never truly understood, was that I was the architect. She was just passing through. 3 weeks after the settlement was signed, Nina returned to Savannah. I received the alert from our corporate security team. Her former keycard had been used at the downtown office. The system flagged it instantly. Every access point I'd once opened for her, physically, financially, legally, was now closed. Not by force, by design. Her account froze on the front gate. Her login failed. A message popped up on her screen. This domain is no longer accessible to you. EH. No anger, no spectacle. Just clarity. She tried to call that day, twice. I didn't answer, because by then I was in another meeting, one that mattered. Across the table sat Carla Mendez, trustee of the Clara Blueprint Foundation, named after my Aunt Clara, the woman who made my career possible and my dignity non-negotiable. We reviewed final paperwork to launch the foundation in Atlanta. where Clara had spent 30 years nursing patients others gave up on, and raising me when no one else would. The Foundation's mission was simple: provide scholarships and mentorship for underserved high school students who wanted to study architecture or structural engineering. The moment I signed the last page, a quiet wave of peace moved through me. This was what Clara meant when she wrote, "Build something that lasts." Not a marriage, not a business, not a house with perfect lighting, but a legacy. By the following Monday, the media started calling. Not because of the divorce, not because of the legal case, but because someone at the trust company had anonymously shared my story to an education nonprofit that ran a newsletter called Grounded Growth. They ran a piece titled, "He Could Have Burned It All Down. Instead, he built a bridge." It went viral in ways I didn't expect. Within a week, local press followed. By the end of the month, national outlets had picked it up. They didn't focus on Nina. They focused on what I chose to do next. In every interview, I said the same thing. Revenge is loud, but integrity builds things that echo longer. The recognition didn't feel like victory. It felt like restoration. Nina saw the coverage too. She sent a short message through her new attorney, someone I hadn't heard of before. She said, "You underestimated me." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Because that week, something bigger happened. A 17-year-old girl named Zahara Caldwell from Macon, Georgia, submitted her essay to the Foundation's first scholarship round. It was titled, "Designing Quiet Spaces for Girls Like Me." She wrote about growing up in a loud home, TVs blaring, voices yelling, streets humming with chaos, and how she used to sketch buildings in the corner of her workbook just to imagine stillness. Reading her words, I felt a lump rise in my throat. I saw Clara. I saw myself. I saw someone who deserved more than what she was handed. She won the scholarship. Zahara cried when we called. Said it was the first time she felt seen. That moment, it outweighed every courtroom signature, every bank record, every betrayal. I used to think the most painful part of losing someone was the silence that followed. But I was wrong. The most painful part was the silence before. The years where you tried to convince yourself they still loved you when they had already moved on in spirit. When Nina siphoned off funds and left me an email instead of an explanation, she did me a favor. She made it final. And in that finality, I found the beginning of something purer, louder in its stillness than any outburst could have been. I walked into our Asheville retreat the day Zahara's letter arrived. The cedar bench still bore the carving from our early days. This space was built for healing, even from ourselves. I ran my hand across the grain, and for the first time in a long time, I realized I had healed. Not because someone apologized, not because I won in court, but because I chose to build something sacred from something shattered. It was a Wednesday morning when the envelope arrived. No return address, just my name written in sharp, familiar strokes that had once signed birthday cards, lease agreements, and love notes. I stood in the doorway of my downtown loft for a long moment, staring at it like it might explode. Inside was a personal check for $94,000 and a small folded card with 6 words. For the dreams I tried to steal, I'm sorry. No signature, no explanation, but the handwriting didn't lie. I didn't need a forensic expert to tell me who wrote it. It was Nina. And strangely, I didn't feel vindicated, not angry, not even relieved. I felt still, like someone had finally shut a door I'd stopped knocking on months ago. I didn't cash the check. Instead, I took it straight to Carla Mendez, our foundation trustee. "Let's turn this into 5 more scholarships," I told her. "One for every year I believed she was building with me when she was already packing an escape route." Carla didn't ask questions. She didn't need to. By now, the mission had grown beyond my pain. That weekend, I visited our old wellness studio, the one Nina and I had opened together a decade ago. It was shuttered now. The once glowing windows were dusty. The hand-painted sign was chipped, hanging at an angle like it had lost its sense of purpose. A real estate flyer flapped in the breeze. I didn't feel sadness, just history. Across the street, however, something stirred. Bulldozers and orange fencing, a banner that read, "Coming soon, the Caldwell Center for Design." Architectural scholarship sponsored by the Clara Blueprint Foundation. The first project Zahara would co-design was about to break ground. That day, standing there with sun bouncing off concrete and steel rods poking from the earth, I realized something vital. Everything Nina tried to take from me, money, trust, even the illusion of partnership, had already been replaced with something far more durable: purpose. And that purpose had a heartbeat. The following month, I was invited to deliver a keynote at a national conference on architectural ethics. I was hesitant. Sharing publicly about the personal story behind the foundation felt raw, even exploitative. But when I arrived at the event, a young man named Elijah, a recent graduate, stopped me in the lobby. He shook my hand with both of his. "You probably don't remember me," he said, "but I read your essay on building through betrayal. That speech saved me. I was in a toxic relationship. I was giving away everything I had, even parts of myself I didn't realize were mine to keep. You helped me walk away." I gave the speech. I told the story not of what Nina did, but of what I chose not to do in response. I said, "We talk a lot about revenge in our culture. But the quiet kind of victory, the one that rebuilds instead of ruins, that's where dignity lives." The room went silent. Then someone clapped. Then others. Not a standing ovation, just steady, respectful recognition. Later that night, back at my loft, I poured a glass of wine and sat on the balcony. From there, I could see the riverfront where Nina and I once dreamed up our future. She wanted a tea bar. I wanted a co-working space for creatives. Neither dream survived. But just a block from that same river, the Caldwell Center was rising. I toasted quietly, not to revenge, not even to resilience, but to the idea that we can rebuild from anything if we refuse to carry the wreckage with us. A few weeks later, a package arrived for Zahara. Inside, a set of vintage architectural books, original prints, out of circulation for decades, with a sticky note. "May your buildings last longer than your heart breaks." She cried when she opened it. So did I. Because that note,
That message had been written first by Clara. I found it in one of her old journals, and now it belonged to someone else. The cycle of loss had finally become a cycle of legacy.
In the end, I didn't burn the bridges. I simply stopped crossing them. When the lies collapsed and the truth stood bare in all its betrayal, I could have retaliated. I could have taken everything, dragged her name, her brand, her reputation through the same mud she had pulled me into. But I didn't, because vengeance feeds the fire, and I was ready to rebuild, on solid ground, not ashes. Instead of ruin, I chose renewal. I honored my Aunt Clara's final wish, build something that lasts. And I did. Not just buildings or scholarships, but a life where integrity meant more than applause, where dignity wasn't negotiable, where the silence after heartbreak wasn't hollow, it was sacred. That's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't just show you who someone else is. It reveals who you are when no one's clapping. From the moment Nina clicked on send on that fateful email, she assumed she had won. But what she never understood, and what so many people don't, is that strength isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, methodical, unshaken. It's choosing to walk away not with rage, but with resolve. And in that quiet resolve, I found something far more powerful than revenge. I found peace. If you've ever been broken, blindsided, or betrayed, I want you to remember this. You don't have to prove your worth by retaliating. Sometimes the truest power is walking forward, clear-eyed, unbothered, and unapologetically whole. So no, I didn't win the way she expected me to fight. But I built a legacy, and she faded into the footnotes. If this story moved you, I invite you to comment below. What helped you reclaim your power after betrayal? And if you want more true stories that reveal strength through silence and power through purpose, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We've got more coming, because your story deserves to be heard.